in North Tonawanda, they've kind of changed things up a little bit. Your kid screws up, it could be you that does the time. Mayor Arthur Pappas is on the line right now, who is the mayor of North Tonawanda. Mayor, good morning. Thanks for coming on.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. So is this strictly, is this about bullying exclusively, or is it about any crime a kid might commit?
Well, basically, it involves any crime, I suppose. Bullying is what really stands out. We've had some incidents in our community in the past year or so, and it's been a little bit more unusual. Under the old code that we had, there was very little teeth in enforcement. The police were frustrated, school authorities were frustrated, parents were frustrated because we've had a couple assaults on juveniles. We had one incident where a mother and her son were leaving a store at a shopping mall, and one of the children in a group here came and sucker punched him right in the face, which required hospitalization. And we've had a few of these. This has involved middle school age children, and kind of going around and terrorizing other kids. And so we decided, after many months of research on the part of the juvenile aid officers here in our community and the police chiefs and Common Council and our legal department, researched other communities across the country. They talked to a few people in another state or two, and came up with something which we feel is a little bit more, it's got more teeth in it, and allows a judge to a little bit more discretion. For example, in a first offense, it used to be that the judge automatically had to pretty much dismiss it. It was strictly he had to give a warning, and the kids knew this. Now the judge has discretion, depending on the seriousness of what happened, to impose a penalty right from the beginning. And the whole idea is not to be punitive, but to be proactive rather than reactive. We want to prevent these things, and by putting responsibility on the child and the parent, because now the parent can be charged also if it's found that they're negligent and they're not supervising their children properly. Do
you think something like this would hold up in court? Because I got to tell you, if my kid does something and I have to do 15 days in jail, chances are I'm going to appeal that.
Sure.
And I ain't going to jail.
Yeah, well, first of all, in the places where this type of thing has been instituted, they haven't had anyone go to jail yet.
Okay.
And I think that would be very rare. I think the parent would have to be shown to be negligent. And the whole idea is to make people responsible. And like most communities, 99% of the parents are probably doing the best they can, and they're doing a good job providing guidance and so on. But there are certain ones that they don't.
Right.
They don't supervise their children.
But wouldn't that normally just go on? So if there was a situation where a kid is repeatedly bullying or he's committing crimes, that it does fall back onto the parent, that the child would then, the case would be referred to family court, where a court that is supposed to be trained in this sort of thing, in youthful offenders, a court would decide, and that might mean the kid's taken away. It could mean a lot of different things. Why not let that process just play through?
Because we've seen that it's not that effective in many cases. We just feel that in our community we don't want to tolerate this kind of behavior, and we want the message out there that not only the child has to learn to be responsible, but the parent has to take some responsibility for their children too. And there's enough in this new resolution. You'd have to look at the whole thing.
Yeah.
But there's enough in there for the parent. Once a child is brought in by the police, the parent is automatically notified. The parent is automatically given notice that this is what's been happening, and it goes from there. Now, if after so many days, 90 days, whatever, there's repetition of this kind of thing, and it's obvious that the parent is not helping, then we're gonna start leaning on the parents more. But the whole thing is the city, the community, our law enforcement is willing to work with the parent to prevent anything from going to family court or whatever.
I've got a million questions. I'll try to keep these short. There was recently a law passed, I believe, that said if you're a teenager or a certain age, you can't be charged as an adult. There's, I believe this was something that came up in New York State. I want to ask if that had any influence on this, because one of the cases you described
raise the age to 18.
Right. One of the cases you described with a teenager walking up to another student who is innocently coming out of a grocery store with their parent and punching him in the face. To me, that sounds like felony assault.
That kid should be in reform school. I hate to say it.
Well, that's just it, because of the age of the child and the way the present laws are, there's very little the police can do. And it has tied the hands of the police department, and they're very, very frustrated also because nothing happens.
So this really is this is really a vote of a lack of confidence in the family court system, the juvenile system.
Well, I don't know if it's so much a lack of confidence, is that we want to get the message out there that things need to be tightened up. So many times excuses are made for assaults on people, and it appears at times that there's more protection for the perpetrator than there is for the victim.
Yeah, all right.
And I think that's the message we're trying to get out. Let's work together as a community, parents, police, schools, city authorities, to prevent this kind of thing from happening. That's our main objective.
All right, fair
it's
enough.
not to put anyone in jail. It's not to. I really don't think you're going to see anybody, or very, very few, going to jail over this. I think it's a message that we want out there.
So it's basically 15 days or a $200 or $250 fine. I want to ask you this. That one of the things we talked about was bullying. I did see there were other circumstances like repeatedly breaking curfew. Can you describe what other type of incidents would prompt activation of this law where a parent could face the penalty?
Well, first of all, for a parent to face that penalty, you better be talking to our legal department. But generally speaking, it would have to be pretty serious. I mean, the curfew itself is in effect, and a child can be brought in, and the parent would be notified to come and pick the child up, and probably be told, there's no reason for a 12, 13-year-old kid to be wandering the streets at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning and hanging out at certain places. No one's going to go to jail because their kid did something like that.
Okay.
There's a lot of discretion, and there's also extenuating circumstances, like with any new law or resolution, no matter what it is, there's always an extenuating circumstance.
Right.
And there is provision in there for exceptions for people or children to be out on the street, and they're listed in the new law. There are several exceptions that allows them to be out for certain circumstances. So I really believe that it's an attempt to send a message to certain people and children. We all need to meet our responsibilities, and parents have to play an active role in helping their children become responsible citizens.
It is quite interesting what you're trying to do. It seems you're trying to do, because with the age of responsibility going up to 18, now that's you're going back into juvenile court anyway, or family court anyway,
Sure.
with the child. But the parents, on the other hand, you could, if this law were to stand, you could prosecute them. Interesting. PINS is the program, person in need of supervision. As an individual under the age of 18, does not attend school, may be ungovernable, habitually disobedient, beyond the control of a parent or guardian, suspected of drug abuse, requires supervision or treatment, etc., etc. It goes to court. They screw up again. They end up usually being sent off to some sort of a detention center or a school for tough kids, whatever you call those schools.
Sure.
But it's going to be interesting to see if this ever, if you ever have to use this law, and if a parent ever goes to jail, and if there's a lawsuit along with it. It's going to be interesting to watch. We'll keep an eye on it, Mayor. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Arthur Pappas, North Tonawanda. Thank you so much.